Everybody. So let's find escapism in a book. That's all I can say. I'm working on finishing up my second book. It's actually probably going to be 2 books because it was a bit too long. And it's a sci-fi fantasy book. But this is The Phoenix and the Falcon. And I've been reading it, hoping that people will share the videos with others, and tell people about it so that I get some more sales and spread the word about The Phoenix and the Falcon. As I've been reading it, I've been thinking about doing working on a sequel, which I always promised everybody I'd do years ago, but never did. And I'm just waiting for the live stream to show up on my... It looks like it's coming along. Here we are. I always say that I do this... I'm live streaming to Facebook and YouTube at the same time. And I always want to make sure that the software works. But there's a lag. There's always this lag. So that's why sometimes there's always this delay. Anyway, we left Helena and... she was happy, So that's a good thing. Poor Alina, I really put her through everything, But it's just the way I saw it, and it's just how it was for this character. My second book, it's not as tough, but there are elements of some graphic elements. Okay, so chapter 25. Early in the morning, Attila's scouts roused the entire camp. Their voices were loud shouts as they galloped toward headquarters, trumpeting the news that a Persian imperial force marched toward them less than half a day away. The prospect of battle energized the men. Small bands charged the rows of tents, yelling and igniting the others into ecstatic tumult. Reared on stories of Persian invincibility, Helena was sick with fear. She pictured their chariots lined in rows, pulled by black horses, slicing through the Hunnic ranks to her heart, to Valamir. She could not imagine how the Huns, little more than a rabble, could hold against a disciplined imperial line. Before leaving, Valamir kissed her hard on the lips and rode off at a gallop to meet Attila. Outside, Helena sat motionless, watching the camp's uproar. Kratapan and Reese worked together with smooth efficiency, sharpening an extra sword and checking bows and arrows. Yet Kratapan's face looked drawn and haggard. He would not meet Helena's eyes. He had not spoken about the time spent with Attila last night with anyone. Her stomach in a hard knot, she visited Pasiel, hoping to soothe her dread. She groomed the white stallion, talking to him in a soft voice, not forgetting to be vigilant against Grillia. The wind blew in gusts from the northeast, making the walls of the tents billow like sails. Helena looked at the gray sky, overcast with clouds that promised colder weather, and realized suddenly that no one need die today. Risking the onset of winter, the Persians had not come to exact justice from Attila, but to rescue the honor of the Persian house. After all, his raids had been well outside their borders, and any interest in him would be incidental to his possession of Altir. She was their prize, their mission. Helena glanced at Kratapan and Reese, busy with Valamir's weapons, and knew she had to intervene. Yet the thought of facing Persians, even as a translator, filled Helena with desperate foreboding. She avoided her feelings and concentrated on the puzzle of Altir's abduction. The kidnapping appeared pointless, as so many stood in line to the Persian throne before the child. As she remembered her grandfather's stories about the royal court, her eyes widened. Poisoning was an art form, and a necessary convenience. Still, Helena could not imagine it being unleashed with such widespread devastation. In the Persian court, anything was possible, even the death of an entire royal family. When she had been young, she had wanted to live there with her father in a grand house. Witherstram had been adamantly opposed to her dream, wanting nothing to do with the Empire. Only when he had grown old, too close to death to be a threat to anyone, had he decided it was safe to return. Yet he had planned to live in Ishtar, center of Zoroastrianism, away from the power struggles near the throne. At the sound of a horse cantering towards them, Helena and Pastiel both looked up. Involuntarily, her body remembered Grulia. Her heart leapt to her throat. When she recognized Thudimir, she almost welcomed him as a diversion from her troubling thoughts. He reined his horse to a halt. Attila needs to speak with you. Valimir told me to come. Hello, Thudimir, Helena said, obliquely rebuking him for his abruptness. You seem well? He looked off into the distance, shaking his head. You're a strange girl, Helena, but you've made my brother happy. Come, ride behind me. It'll be faster than waiting for Kratchapan to saddle and bridle your horse. She shook her head, not wanting physical contact with him. We can go. Down, Pastiel. The stallion lowered his leg, allowing her to mount easily, without any pressure on her hand. Thudimir's eyes narrowed critically as she sat the horse without bridle or saddle, only a halter. You can't keep your animal under control that way. Perhaps. Lead the way, we'll follow. Thudimir wheeled his horse in a tight circle, and then urged it into a hard gallop. Pastiel lunged forward with a leap, making Helena grab his mane. The younger Ostrogoth glanced back with a condescending smile. He saw that she and her horse rode as one. His superior expression faded. He pointedly ignored her until they reached Attila's headquarters. A murmur of approval at Helena's bold entrance swept the crowd of Huns awaiting for Attila. She shifted her weight backward, giving the white stallion the signal to halt. He collected himself and stood all four hoofs square on the ground, as if at attention. With a sidelong glance, Thudimir spoke in Greek. Show off. She only laughed, a short, sparkling sound. As he averted his face, Helena glimpsed a grin. Valimir strode out of Attila's tent, his face bleak. When he saw Helena, his frown disappeared. He peremptorily snapped his fingers at one of Attila's slaves. Take her horse to Hassan, but treat him well. His arms wrapped around Helena, lifting her down. Feeling his body close, she wished that they were alone. As the slave reached for Pastiel's halter, the stallion snorted, throwing his head back away from the grasping hand. Pastiel, Helena said, find Hassan. Go. Her horse laid back his ears at the slave and whinnied. Hassan answered with a deep bellow, and Pastiel struck off at a smart trot to join him. The man left behind scratched his ear in surprise. Helena started to explain. He's not used to strangers. But realized she had spoken in Greek. Not understanding, the slave opened his palms. She repeated her statement in Gothic, and the man nodded with relief, glad not to be blamed for an animal's misbehavior. Catching Helena's eye, Thudimir laughed derisively. And I thought the horse was well trained. His words trailed into nothingness as he focused his attention behind her. Following his stare, Helena saw Grulia approaching, his bay horse running at a hard gallop. Her ears roared, but her breathing was slow and disciplined. As she felt her hate. Time and space were suspended, moving at a languid tempo. Oblivious to all but Grulia's advance, she watched with her eyes narrowed. From within she felt darkness needing release and a solace through a final revenge. Her hand slowly reached for her dagger, but Valimir grasped her by the wrist and firmly restrained it. She turned on him, cold with rage. When she saw the concern in his face, her heart softened. Assaulted by a multitude of sensations, she forced herself to gaze into his cool blue eyes. As if confessing to a Christian priest, Helena whispered, When I see him, I lose myself, almost as if I'm mad. I don't know how to stop it. Don't look at him, just at me. She stared at him, drawing strength from his will, allaying the chaos of her upheaval. With a smile, Valimir brushed her hair from her cheek. Come inside, Helena. Attila wants to speak with you. He clasped her uninjured hand and ushered her inside the large tent. Attila brooded over a fire, his arms folded across his chest. his drab leather tunic muted against the blue and red carpet thrown on the ground. He raised his head. His mouth was compressed into a thin line. Sit. We have important matters to consider. Imitating Valamir, Helena took a place on the rug. Her thoughts were tumultuous from fear. We'll need an interpreter when we meet the Persians, Attila said bluntly. Helena's heart was in her throat as she realized that Attila planned to parley. His crafty mind had come to the same conclusion as hers. I'll go with Karachapan, Valamir said. Attila's head shook once, slowly. No, old friend, it must be Helena. Valamir explained, why would you think of risking her? When they see a female, they'll be curious and hold their swords. Remember, they search for Rodinia and the child. As you near, they'll realize their mistake. A few men will shoot through a beautiful woman's heart before hearing her speak. Valamir began to protest, but Helena interrupted him, her hand gripping her shoulder. Her voice was even, belying the dread curdling in her stomach. Who else meets the Persians? Pleased by her tacit acceptance, Attila smiled. Valamir, of course, Ishiite, and 2 others who are of no significance except for their skill with swords. If they try to take you, they'll pay the price with their blood. Helena ignored the unpleasant inference. Why Valamir? His presence is imposing. After all, he is the son of a king, and the Persian commander will recognize him for what he is. An Ishiite? Why him? He's one of my best men, one of my favorite cousins. I trust him with my life. She stared at Attila. But our lives will be in jeopardy, not yours. Will he give Valamir the same loyalty? You ask hard questions, Helena, said Attila. Helena, Valamir said, Ishiite is my friend. Don't question his honor. Chastened by his stern tone, she studied the pattern on the rug. I'm sorry, Valamir, but I needed to know. She raised her head, her eyes holding his. I'm going with you. I'll make sure that you come back unharmed. Attila's plan is sound. It's to our advantage to negotiate and find a common interest, rather than to fight. Attila smiled broadly. You learn quickly, Helena. She ignored his praise. What do you want from the Persians? Ransom? How would you keep it, even collect it? Do you think they travel with treasure? Perhaps, Attila replied. They are a good 2 weeks from reinforcements. He stood and paced the length of his small tent before returning to stand above her. We travel on the wind. They could never catch us, but the situation requires special handling. First, I must meet with their commander. Valamir and you shall negotiate a time and place between the 2 armies, preferably closer to our side. And his throat was dry. I'll help, but I ask that the shaman be within their ranks, watching when we first engage the Persians. We might have need of his earth magic. Attila's face was shuddered inward, but his nod was unequivocal. Your words have wisdom. It shall be as you ask. Helena persevered. Winter comes and shall not wait while we are distracted by one more raid than another. Rodinia's caravan has brought us nothing but trouble, costing us precious time. Time to go back to your homeland. Attila's eyes were cold, but he laughed. Don't be such a woman, Helena. Blind to opportunity. Who knows what will come of this encounter? We shall watch and learn. As you say, Attila, Valamir said, I wouldn't mind seeing my father and hear how he fares with his new bride. It's been 2 years. I don't want him to forget his older sons. Attila chuckled derisively. You mean you wonder if he's managed to whelp another heir? Watching out for your crown, are you? Valamir shrugged, not looking away from Attila's inquisitive brown eyes. My tent's drafty in the winter. A stone hearth would be a welcome change. Besides, I'm tired of not knowing what Ruglava does with the Romans. Attila's mouth rippled into a snarl. His voice rasped. We agree on the last point. Like a beggar, he accepts their gold. How many men has he sacrificed, hiring them to be mercenaries for Roman wars? He cleared his throat, regaining his composure. But that must wait. Now we resolve the problem of the little girl. Before we go, I should see her, Helena said, feeling guilty that in all the excitement she had neglected her. Then she added to Valamir, "I need my tack for Pasiel." Valamir's eyes crinkled with amusement. "Why did you come without it?" Theodore was in a hurry. He wanted to ride double, but I refused. Valamir smiled, reaching for her. Maybe you should ride the mare." "No, I want Pasiel. He'll bring us luck." She paused, afraid to ask. "Valamir," she said in a low voice, "I'll need my grandfather's sword." "Why a sword, Alina?" Attila asked. "I can't explain, but it matters. For me, it's like a talisman. It will give me courage." Attila chuckled. "Courage is not a quality that you lack, Helena. When a soldier goes into battle, he should bring what gives him confidence. Let her take it, Valamir." She found his support patronizing, but ignored it. "Before we go, I'll speak with Altir." Attila's nod was abrupt. "Valamir, take her to my women. I'll send word to your servants for the sword and tack. Be quick with the brat, Helena. We ride soon." Though angry at his name-calling, Helena refused to be goaded into an outburst. Attila gained power by inciting others to lose control. Like a puppeteer, he held the strings and made everyone dance to his song, even Valamir. She met his eyes, not reacting to the disparaging remark. "And what of Rodinia?" the commander will ask. Attila's smile was rich with memories. "She lives, but you can say that we prepared her thoroughly for his interrogation. She is very familiar with me now, and I with her." Shivering imperceptibly, Helena restrained herself from flinching. "I'll see the child now." He raised an eyebrow, inclining his head regally. "Be quick." She turned her back on both of the men and stepped into the clear fall air. The wind felt like a cleansing breath to her body, sweeping away her gnawing anxiety. Valamir was at her side, issuing rapid instruction in Gothic to a small, dark-haired Briton, another of Attila's numerous slaves. His words flew at the man, who bowed and ran toward a soldier. As they walked to the women's tent, Helena took his arm. Valamir stopped suddenly. "I've changed my mind. You won't ride with me today." "But I must." No one else is asked to risk his wife. Attila or not, I'm taking Karachapan. You'll wait in my tent." Tears in her eyes, Helena shook her head adamantly. "But I have to go. If you die, I'll follow. Without you, there's nothing left." His face softened. Disregarding the curious stares, he pulled her to his chest, cradling her in his arms. "Together we'll see tomorrow," he whispered in her ear. "I must hurry. By the time you finish with Altir, I'll have Pasiel ready." As they approached the tent, a guard intercepted them. Valamir barked an order in Hunnic, and the man moved to one side. Before entering, Helena smiled at Valamir. "Be here when I come out. If you leave without me, I'll make you finish what you started on your chest." He smiled, but his face was tinged with sadness. "Women should not be called to battle, Helena. I give you my word, I'll wait." Her hand lingered in his, comfortable as a nesting bird. "I won't be long." Once in the women's quarters, Helena was greeted with stares. Speaking hesitant Gothic, she tried to communicate. "Attila told me I could see Altir." One of the wives, a beautiful, dark-haired woman, gestured toward the sleeping child. Her young face, so innocent, was edged with her black curls, reminding Helena of Mikkel. Her heart aching, she knelt beside the child. Altir's eyes had dark circles under them. Hating to disturb her, Helena whispered her name. The child sighed in her sleep, only opening her eyes when Helena touched her arm. "Oh, it's you," she said. "I'm glad. I didn't want to wake you, but I had to tell you what's happened. Persians have come looking for you. I'm to go talk with them, but Karachapan will come to visit. Would you like that?" "Oh, yes, he tells me funny stories. He makes me laugh and I forget about things." With heartfelt sympathy, Helena tried to smile at the unexpected glimpse of Karachapan's playful side. "That's good, Altir." She paused, thinking for a moment. "Is there anything that I can show the Persian commander so he knows that you are really here? He might not believe us. Might not believe me." The child looked anxious. "Will you give it back?" "I promise, Altir. You may take my necklace. Mama told me to keep it hidden under my dress. She said it's very valuable." Helena's eyes widened with surprise. "I'll keep it safe." Reaching under her clothing, Altir drew out a golden pendant hanging from a delicately tooled chain. It was an emblem with an eagle, intertwined with 2 snakes, encrusted with small rubies and emeralds. As Attila's wives watched, Altira placed it over Helena's head. "How did you keep this from Rodinia?" Helena asked. The child's chin thrust forward with defiance. "She never thought to search me." Helena hugged her. "You did well, Altira. I'm proud of you. Are you hungry?" The child nodded. Before leaving, Helena asked the wives to see that she was fed. To her relief, they clustered around Altira with smiles, offering her an assortment of treats. Though Altira did not understand a word, her face brightened at the attention. Outside, Valimir and Kretchen waited. Helena grinned at the servant. "She likes your funny stories." But Kretchen had eyes only for Altira's necklace, reflecting the morning sun. His voice was hushed. "Where did you get that?" "From Altira, to offer as proof to the Persian commander." "It's an imperial emblem," he said, awestruck. "This child is closer to the throne than we thought." He frowned with disgust and consternation. Rodinia lied, even to Attila, sticking to her story about the child being only a niece. The bitch. Helena remembered how Rodinia's words about Valimir had stung. "Did she insult you too?" "Yes. She's vicious, but only part of the whole," she said. "There's a pattern in all this, and I can't see it. Even Altira believes that she's the Emperor's niece. Rodinia may not know the entire truth. I believe that Attila stumbled on a serious threat to the throne. Why else would they go to all this trouble to kidnap a female of the Emperor's bloodline?" Valimir was thoughtful. "Attila must be told. We are out of our depth. Leagues from reinforcements. It would be suicide to demand ransom." Who had to be sorted with a derision. The gods would have to work in harmony to turn Attila from his greed. Valimir was abrupt. "Hush, old friend." Attila appeared suddenly beside him, his approach soundless. He scowled at Kretchen. "What did your servant say?" "Nothing of consequence, Kretchen. Kretchen, take Helena to Pastiel while I speak with our leader." Not hesitating to escape from Attila's glare, Kretchen quickly hobbled to the horses. As Helena rushed after him, she shouted, "Did you bring my grandfather's sword?" Out of Attila's hearing, Kretchen slowed his pace. He was panting for breath. "We are of one mind, Helena. Somehow this sword will matter today. I fastened its sheath so that it hangs from your saddle, in plain view, but within easy reach. If anyone threatens you, you won't be afraid to use it." Impressed, Helena nodded. "You think of everything, Kretchen. Sometimes I'm lucky, other times not." He said, his smile rueful. Thinking of his maimed leg, Helena agreed. Her mood became somber. "Spend time with Altira. The women are kind, but she can't talk to them. Don't worry. Today you stay in the moment. Be the moment, and all will be well." "I pray so, Kretchen. My words have been brave to Valimir and Attila, but I'm filled with uneasiness. Though I ride with Valimir to the Persians, it's as if I guard Valimir instead of the other way around. I don't understand what I'm feeling, but it has nothing to do with dying. I just want this day to be over and tomorrow to have begun." Attila watched with folded arms as Valimir strode towards them. His face was reflective, even calm. His presence was a balm to Helena's anxiety. Valimir took her aside and spoke quietly to her. "I told him about the emblem. Naturally, he was quite upset that no one had thought to search the child. These are his instructions. We're not to mention ransom. Indeed, we're to be eager to turn Altira over to the proper authorities, to let them understand that a gift of a reward would be appreciated." "Thank God I see reason," Helena said. "They might have additional reinforcements. We should not be playing games with them." "You're right, Helena. Stay close." She grinned at Kretchen with more bravery than she felt. "Until tonight, and then tomorrow." Kretchen smiled back, his eyes bright. Valimir lifted her to horse, then mounted Hassan. The roan snorted, making a show of his excitement. As he joined Attila, now astride his black stallion, he stared at the pendant around her neck. He frowned, extending his hand. "Let me see it." Reluctantly, Helena obeyed, watching him sharply as he examined it. He muttered, "I'd be satisfied with this as a child's ransom. If it's what we suspect, they'd kill us all to get it back," Helena said. He returned it to her. We'll have to see, won't we? Come, you two ride with me. They wove their way through the camp, horsemen swelling the ranks behind them. Once through the tents, Attila whirled his horse in a tight circle, signaling it to rear. The lines of men were silent, waiting for his words. He spoke in impassioned Hunnic, but Helena did not listen to the incomprehensible sounds. Instead, she watched the effect of his words on the men's rapt faces. They would walk on fire to please their leader. Accidentally, her gaze found Grelia. Eyes only for Attila, he retracted his mouth into a wide grin. His teeth appeared to snarl like a rabid wolf's. She refused to dwell on him, not wanting the darkness that was certain to follow. She disciplined her thoughts and pictured herself surrounded by golden light. When Attila pointed at her, she became the object of the men's attention. She kept her outward composure by breathing quietly, concentrating on Pastiel's mane, silver in the morning sun, denying the urge to push him into a run and taking her away from the staring eyes. Though her mind understood that Attila was explaining her presence as a translator, her body's terror was instinctive. She could die today. Dropping his hand to his side, Helena released her from the unwanted attention and recaptured his men's focus. Free from their scrutiny, she exhaled deeply and calmed her pounding heart. As if compelled, she looked up and saw the shaman in the forefront of the crowd. No one pressed against him, creating emptiness around his horse. Not understanding how she could have seen him before, she wondered if he had her grandfather's ability to melt into his surroundings, as if invisible. As their eyes met, Lena felt unclean. His quiet examination penetrated her heart. She waited for him to flinch at the horror of her darkness, but his face was serene, strong, holding no judgment, only compassion. She wanted to speak with him, but there had never been a chance. Attila shouted a war cry, piercing her quiet communion. The men's voices pummeled the sky, erupting with anticipation of battle. Beside her, Velimir was silent, his eyes dark with concern. As the horses surged forward, Helena smiled at him bravely, shielding him from her desperate fear. Down from the foothills of the Ural Mountains, they raced to the steppes and to the destiny that awaited them. And that ends the chapter. So, let's see what happens next. So, does she survive?